A few weeks ago, I put out a poll in a DBD community on Twitter where I asked what was more challenging, Killer or Survivor. While I wasn't surprised that most people agree that Killer is more challenging, I was surprised at how many said Survivor. So, due to those results, I thought I'd make a video on the age-old question of which role has it the hardest. Now, if you've seen any of my other videos, you know that I like to be as diplomatic as possible when speaking on ideals and opinions, and this video will be no different. However, I'm going to let you know right now that I wholeheartedly believe Killer has a much more strenuous task than Survivors. But before you get too upset, I just ask that you don't click away just yet so that I may properly explain why. So who really has it harder between Killer and Survivor? Let's talk about it. Alright, so let me start off by saying that both roles can certainly be challenging in their own right from match to match. If you're in solo queue and you have bonehead teammates, then yeah, you can certainly have a hard time, of course. If you're playing against a stronger killer like Nurse or Blight, you can have a harder time escaping, of course if they're good at that killer. And then there are some times where we just simply get outplayed on either side. So yeah, both roles have times where just escaping or getting at least three survivors sacrificed can be a difficult time. Both roles do have challenging matches, and you can have a hard time as both. But what I'm mainly speaking about in this video is why playing Killer has the harder task in general across the board, regardless of situations due to the simple objective of the game. So by no means am I saying that Survivor is super easy, because it isn't, but at the core of this game, Killer certainly has way more to be aware of, thus leading to a higher skill floor. So my first point, I want to talk about just awareness. I am not the best survivor in the world. I've said that before on the channel. I escape sometimes though. I'm not absolutely horrible at Survivor, but I'm definitely a killer main. When I sit down to play DBD, if I'm actually trying to play the game and play with some of my favorite killers and actually focus and really be into the match, then I'm playing Killer. Well, also mainly because I'm a Killer main, so I'm probably gonna be playing Killer more often anyway. But when I really want to play the game and I want to try out one of like say play with a killer that I don't play as often, or level up one of my killers, I'm currently trying to get Nurse and Huntress to P100. So I'm aware that when I do that, it's a whole different level of awareness. However, on the other side, when I sit down and say I want to play DBD but I don't really want to think that much, I'm picking Survivor. And I think a lot of people would agree with that. I'm not saying that you don't have to think at all and you don't have to be aware at times, but as Survivor, you don't have to be as hyper-focused as you do when you play Killer. When you're playing Killer, you have to know what's going on at all times across the entire map with all the survivors, all the gens. You got to know about vaults. You got to know about, knowing when to loop, how to loop, or when to double back, when to drop chase with a survivor. And that's not even talking about the killer power that you have depending on the killer you picked. There's so many variables. And then you have your perks, and you have to have good, certain add-ons that can help a killer that may not be as strong in chase, or certain things. We have a ton of killers that are more likely to be M1 than get a lot of value out of their power. There's way less awareness involved. And so me, as someone who is not that good at Survivor, well, I can't say I'm bad at Survivor, but as someone who is better at Killer than Survivor, when I want to play Dead by Daylight but I don't want to think as much, I pick Survivor. I've had people say that same thing, that when you want to really lock in and play the game, you're gonna pick Killer. When you want to just kind of ease, just kind of chill and relax and kind of have a few jump scares and have some fun moments with your friends, you're picking Survivor. And I think that's a big point, as to, again, not saying that both sides can't have difficult matches, but as far as on a base level, which side has it more difficult most of the time, starting right off with awareness, it's no contest right there between Killer and Survivor. So yeah, awareness being the first point. You have to be hyper focused, well, you don't have to be. You can play the game however you want to. You can just spawn in and spin around in circles if you want to. You know, you don't have to do that. But coming from the standpoint of if you're trying to actually win, then, you know, you have to lock in and be aware way more than you do as Survivor. Now, of course, you know, you got to listen out as Survivor. You got to listen to your surroundings, pay attention to your friends and see who's going down, who's on second hook, pay attention to yourself. Now, yeah, I'm not saying you don't have to pay attention at all as Survivor, because of course you do, you know. If you've got a silent killer like a Ghostface or something like that, you know, you got to be really more on your P's and Q's with listening for sound cues, you know, like Ghost, his like little wind flaps and everything, you know, when he's nearby. Yeah, you got to pay attention to stuff like that. But when you're playing as Ghostface, you know, you got all 4 people you got to be concerned about. And then, you know, that I still feel like his mechanic of being revealed is kind of finicky. I mean, where I've had times where I don't really pick Ghostface a lot. This video, of course, is not about Ghostface, but I just want to talk about that really quick. Am I the only one that feels like he can be revealed when you almost are certain that they can't see you? I don't know. It seems like there have been plenty of times where I pick Ghostface, I'm like, little meter starts to fill up like they're revealing you, and I'm like, I can't even see them. How can they see me? I'm totally behind this rock, and you still get revealed. So, you know, that's another thing. You know, you have your power going against you sometimes too. I guess I can't say going against you, but there's so many variables that need to be taken into consideration when you're playing as Killer. So first point, awareness definitely is going to go to the side of Killer. All right, and then my next point is about skill. Okay, pause really quick. I don't know if you guys have seen this recent announcement from Behavior, but they just said that subscribing is actually free right now to anyone that you're watching. I mean, anybody, maybe even the person you're watching right now. Huh. Anyway, and skill with who you're picking. When you are picking your favorite Survivor because, you know, you like that Survivor's whatever, you know, you like their look, you like their cosmetics and whatnot, you don't have to take your skill with that player or with that character into consideration. You know, you're just picking your favorite Survivor. You're just picking the Survivor that you have the most time with, or the one that you like, that you have all of your cosmetics with. So the skill totally falls on you from the Survivor. But with Killer, the skill is both. You have to be at least decent most of the time to get, you know, I'm just talking about, you know, winning and losing, to accomplish your task. You have to be at least decent most of the time with whatever killer you picked. So you have to be good at the game, one, because you have to understand game knowledge. Like, okay, like I was saying in the beginning, like when to chase somebody, when to drop chase, understanding looping, understanding where a Survivor might run to, understanding your perks and how to use them properly and how to properly and efficiently, because I still, you know, mess up with that, where I may bring a perk and don't even and forget that I brought it and don't get any usage out of it. That goes into consideration as well. But then it's just your overall prowess with the chosen killer. You know, you may be good at the game, but you pick a killer that you're not as tight with, you're still gonna have trouble, you know. And then of course, if you have the Survivors that you're going against that have a good sense of how to counter that killer, then, you know, you're really in for a match where, again, not saying it's totally easy on the Survivor side, but you definitely have way more to consider and to think about and to really have a good grip and an understanding of for you to have success. Whereas on the other side, you have bailouts. You have 3 other bailouts, actually, you know, if they're competent in any way, of course. So skill matters a whole lot more. You know, again, me not being the best Survivor in the world, there have been plenty of matches where I escaped just because the killer just never saw me. You know, the killer never was able to put pressure on a certain side of the map, or my teammates were able to really hold their focus, hold the killer's focus on them, to where the killer never really had time to go at me. And what I'm good at is if my teammates are good with keeping the killer's attention, I'm running through those gens. And so, you know, that's another thing where, you know, you have to, the game, definitely in the state now, you know, if you're not able to apply enough pressure quickly, then those gens are gonna fly, you know, and then you're trying to play catch up at the end of the match. Me not being the best Survivor, but if I was able to just kind of just sit back and just do the gens and avoid the killer, then I'm doing pretty well. Now, of course, I still have to escape, which of course, you know, because yeah, you can definitely get caught up at the end of the game. I actually had a match last night where I just slaughtered this team. I forgot what killer I was playing as, but I slaughtered this team, and the last Survivor, I hadn't seen, it was a Meg. I hadn't seen that Meg the entire match. She, you know, got up to the exit gate, and I was like, you know what, I'll let you go. You know, because I know she was like, or that person was like, you know, you haven't seen me this whole match and I'm gonna lose at the end because my teammates kind of fumbled the bag. So yeah, escaping when you're by yourself, of course, is difficult. But I would argue that's difficult for anybody, even like, you know, super skilled players. You know, you got to really lock. That's when you really do have to lock in a survivor when you're the last one. I would definitely agree with that. So the next point is kind of similar to my previous point about skill level, but I want to hone in more on the killer difficulty level. So another telltale of what role is harder is when you select a killer, there is a difficulty level next to their name. There is not a difficulty level next to a survivor's name because there's no difficulty there. It's just you. If you're good at getting away, then you're good. If you're good at helping your teammates and being efficient, you're probably going to have success. And plus, the killer has 4 of you to worry about. You know, there's a conversation to be had on if that difficulty rating for each killer is as spot on as it could be. There's a conversation for that. There still is a difficulty level next to each killer because all killers have a certain level of difficulty built into their kit. So as I was, you know, my last video talking about S tier killers, you know, you got Nurse and Blight that are very hard killers to master, where you may have someone like, I don't know, like Trickster, I believe is easy, not very difficult to master. Maybe not the easiest to actually win with all the time, but as far as understanding the power, not very difficult. I think Huntress says moderate, which I would kind of argue Huntress probably should be hard. I mean, because yeah, you got a lot of hatchets to throw, but if you're missing, you're already a slower killer. You're just turning into an M1 killer, you know? So anyway, the killer power level, you know, with their base kit, you know, all that goes into consideration, you know, and then there's another topic about that. You know, some killers have more counterplay than others. You know, I think a couple of videos ago I was talking about Vecna, and actually that last video talking about S tier killers, I was mentioning how weak Vecna felt in the PTB, because he did, to me personally, and I know a lot of people that agree with that as well. Love the killer design, love the lore, love that we have D&D in the game. I love everything about that. But his power and his kit was underwhelming. There was way too much built-in and counterplay, and you didn't have to do a lot to get that counterplay either. So, you know, that goes into play with a lot of killers too. And as I'm speaking about that, did read the patch notes today about the upcoming the upcoming full release of the D&D chapter this upcoming Tuesday. Vecna has been buffed. And looks like it was a lot of those things that we were worried about, which is, you know, at least the speed, you know, like those cooldowns were brutal. I think like his cooldowns for all of his powers were 50 seconds apiece. You know, so you already have the survivor who can easily just, you know, pick up an item and see what you're doing across the map. And then when you use that power, you got an almost whole minute where you can't use that power again. That's major, you know. And then you take into consideration killer survivors that are just already good in chase. Oh no, you know, it's so that's another thing where you have counterplay built into some of these killers, where some killers are just easy to counter. You know, some of you may disagree with this next one, and I'm not I don't pick the artist a lot, and maybe you guys can explain to me why they designed it this way. But one thing I know I particularly don't like about artists, when you get swarmed with those crows, if you're near a locker, you can just cancel that in no time. Like, you can get her whole power is I have to swarm you with crows to either do damage or get value out of understanding where you are on the map. But if she throws those crows at you across the map and you're near a locker, you get into a locker and that is done. No time, 0 seconds. You can totally delete her power on you just by jumping into a locker and jumping back out. Now, of course, if you fast exit the locker, she'll get that the player will get that notification. If you across the map, and even if you do, you know, quickly exit out of the locker, it doesn't really matter, because now, you know what I mean? Like, her power is just easily stopped. Now, of course, that's just one situation, one scenario where I know you could say, well, if you're not nearby any lockers, then you can't do that, and that is true. But still, if you, I had a match a while ago where I did that same thing. She threw the crows, it hit me, I jumped to a locker, and got right back on the gen. It was like nothing happened, and that was her entire power, was that. Able to totally delete her power. So some killers have a lot more counterplay built into their kit, which also adds to the difficulty of playing killer in general, where, you know, you already have the difficult task of understanding where everyone is on the map, being good at the killer you chose, understanding when to do certain things within the map, just having game knowledge. And then you have some killers, like I'm saying, that just have more counterplay just built in, where it's just easier to counter certain killers. So, you know, that's obviously you know, I think if we're being honest, that's an obvious point where killer is definitely harder. And then my last major point is one that you guys know was coming, and that is when you're going against a Swift, when you're going against people who are actually playing together. Anybody who's ever played killer and you go against an obvious Swift, you know, even if you're good at the game, that can still be a very difficult and engaging match where you have to really be paying attention the whole time. You're gonna have coordinated efforts. You're gonna have someone leading you in front of a locker for another survivor to use head on, and then that survivor who used head on is gonna drop a flashlight. I mean, not a flashlight, a flashbang. You know, you're gonna have stuff like that. You're gonna have a lot more body blocking. You're gonna have a lot of coordinated efforts when you're playing against a Swift, and then, you know, even more so if you're playing against a bully squad. You know, a team that is not really caring too much about escaping, but just making sure that the killer has a difficult time. But yeah, I think that just to wrap it up, I think that because of all of the things that you have to be concerned with when you're playing killer, that you do not have to be concerned with on the other side as survivor, just makes it no question about it. No question about it, killer definitely has a much higher skill floor. You know, considering, you know, all the things that we've gone over today, like, you know, built-in counterplay for killers, understanding map awareness, understanding pressure, understanding when to chase someone, when to not chase someone, when to back off, understanding your loops, understanding your killer's power, the killer that you've chosen, understanding when to use a killer's power, understanding where a survivor may be running to, understanding how to, you know, cut off certain locations, utilizing your power to maybe not just for just direct benefit, but maybe, you know, a killer that has powers that, you know, that give like more reconnaissance, where, you know, like the Hag or somebody like that, where you have to be really thinking about where your power placement is. So there's a lot of, you know, variables on the killer side that need to be taken into consideration when we're talking about the difficulty of both roles. And I think we've gone over that pretty well in this video. Of course, if I forgot anything, please let me know. Please share your thoughts and opinions down below. And yeah, so I'm gonna definitely say without a doubt that both roles in this game are fun, challenging, cool. You know, we have the camaraderie with our teammates and the community, but as it stands now, and to me, it's almost always been, killer definitely has a much more involved role in the game, thus making selecting killer the harder role to play. But with all that said, I appreciate each and every one of you. We are closing in on 250 subs. If you've made it this far, go ahead and hit that sub button. You know, you might as well. I mean, you know, you must have enjoyed something about the video today, and I appreciate you all. If you've made it this far, if you've clicked on the video at all, we're almost halfway to 500 subs, guys, and I just can't thank you guys enough for, you know, sticking around, you know, having these conversations together, and yeah, it looks like, you know, we're kind of building a small community almost, you know? So definitely appreciate each and every one of you. As I always say, stay safe, and I will see you in the fog.